We'll be done by like, this is going
Okay.
to take like half an hour, 40 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
This shouldn't take more than 30 minutes. And if that's
Okay,
too
good.
much time, let me know
Nope.
because this is
Nope,
part
that's good.
two of the interview. And this is part two of the Down with the Psychopaths, Nihilist, Fascist podcast. I appreciate you smiling because my original title was a lot more vulgar than that. Um, and that comes from me uh, trying to discover who I am post-psychosis because after Donald Trump was elected the second time, I was so disappointed that Kamala Harris lost that I had my first and so far only psychotic break. And I heard an alien voice inside my head. Um, and the voice just said one thing. It said, "You're cool," which which was really funny. And so I'm one of the most fortunate uh, survivors of a psychotic episode that I've ever encountered or read about.
Wow.
But
Wow. Well, I'm happy you survived and that it was a positive voice.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
very strange. Uh, but that was kind of that kind of leads into my first question, and we'll go through
Sure.
this pretty quickly because I know you're pressed for time. Uh, and I think you've seen this question. Could you let us know, me and the audience, your most recent epiphany you had regarding your faith?
The most recent epiphany I had regarding my faith.
Yes, sir.
So it's interesting. Um, Part of are you're familiar with the word deconstruction and deconstructing your beliefs and
Mm,
like all that kind of thing where you question your beliefs and all that. And so I've been involved in that for a very, very long time, decades even. And one of the one of the things I realized fairly early on was that um, almost like we're not fooling around here. This is serious business. And this isn't just a matter of rearranging the furniture. It's a total start over. And so and it's kind of like, that's kind of the theme of, the Bible even and the New Testament where it talks about death and resurrection rather than slow and gradual reform. It's more like death and resurrection. And that's what I've noticed in my own spiritual life. It's more like, okay, it's this is feels less like a progression and more like a whole bunch of death and resurrections. And so um, the you get to a point in your deconstruction, I observe from my own experience and from others, that even the language our of our religion, let's say Christianity and the church, is held up for scrutiny. So that even using the words like belief and faith can become problematic for some people. And so I think that was one of the biggest things for me was realizing there's no point in rearranging the furniture on a sinking ship. The whole ship's going down. And prepare yourself for the next kind of like paradigm, and when we talk about paradigms, we think of the Copernicus kind of thing where before everything rotated around the Earth, and then after the Copernicus revolution, the Copernican revolution, everything rotated around the sun. And like that's not a
yeah.
development.
Yeah,
That
that's a leap forward in common knowledge for all mankind.
that's right. So that's
Like
becoming
Dante in literature.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We are of the same sensibility, I guess. To for context, a couple things.
Uh-huh.
You were a pastor for 30 years.
Yes.
And at that time, I presume that you self-identified, I'm assuming as a Christian, but I don't know. And now, do you self-identify as an agnostic or an atheist, or you still a
Right.
Christian, or what?
Right. I get that question a lot, and a lot of people don't know. So
Yeah.
there are, I really love the graph where there's four gradients. There's four side, parts of the graph. So you have on the believing side, you have uh, believer, agnostic believer, atheist, agnostic atheist. And I would probably fall in the agnostic believer, agnostic atheist side where we don't know. So on a believer side, they know they know. They know they believe. They know they're right. They know there's a God. On the atheist side, they know there is not a God, and they're absolutely certain about that. On that side, that's where you would get fundamentalists in both the believer and atheist side. I know fundamentalist believers and fundamentalist atheists. I'm on the more agnostic side. The agnostic believer would be, I think there's a God. And on the uh, agnostic atheists, they'd be more like, I think there isn't a God. So
Yeah.
I tend to fall on the agnostic side of things. And in terms of Christianity, I know my roots are in Christianity. I have a few sayings I like to say. One is my roots are, I respect my roots, but I don't let them limit me. I also say my home's in Christianity, but I have cottages everywhere. I also say Christianity and the church is my family of origin and always will be. But maybe I no longer live in the house. I'm out and maybe moved away, but that's still my family of origin. And I also like the analogy of the rings of a tree. If you cut a tree across, you'd see all the rings, the growth rings from all the years. And inside there, somewhere for many, many years, was my living in Christianity, living in the church, living in ministry. And then I kept going, I kept growing. And and so even though I'm not inside the church, it's still a part of who I am. Like the growth rings of a tree. They're still very much a part of who I am, but also all are also other things.
Have you visited Japan? Have you been to Japan?
I've been to Japan, yes.
Have you been to Kyoto?
No.
I was just thinking because I am agnostic, and I think that for me, the voice and everything, the way
Uh-huh.
I've processed it, is that I believe that my faith as an atheist helped me recover very quickly. And because I kind of had this epiphany, I thought a lot of people who've had a psychotic break, because I believe in real time, I was on Facebook because I believed I was experiencing a psychotic break in real time, and I wanted to help people because it's a very lonely experience when you hear an alien voice inside your head. So I thought that I had an understanding of people who really believed that they were prophets, that they didn't have an understanding of what a psychotic break was. And when they heard that voice inside their head, they really believed it. So what
Right.
changed for me when I had my psychotic break, I went into that psychotic break being an atheist. I came out of that psychotic break being an agnostic because I thought I was mentally stronger. I thought as I aged that my body would give out before my brain because
Hmm.
I'm overeducated and I've always relied on my brain. But then I
Hmm.
realized that with this kind of fever that someone who suffers from bipolar disorder, who's riding the kind of the wave, a manic wave, would think of themselves. And I thought, I am the evangelical atheist. I'm going to write a movie about this because for 30 years, that's what
Hmm.
I did. I wrote movies and
Wow.
screenplays and teleplays to try to get in and uh, have a career as a writer in film and television. My wife and I both did. That's how we met. We met through an online writing site, and we liked each other's work. And then I realized in this epiphany that I was done with all that, that I was going to become a podcaster and a novelist, and that I was going to basically create my world as an evangelical atheist to kind of spread the notion that being a humanitarian is a valid way for a human being to express their faith. Because I think the first definition of the word faith, as I read it and as I look it up online or consult the OED or whatever, the number one definition of the word faith is faith in, that one human being has in another human being that they can do their job. So when my wife and I buy cheap airline tickets to go on a little holiday vacation, I have faith that everyone in the process at that budget airline is going to do their job so that we may all arrive, somewhere safely. Now, I know I've had this conversation before. I had this conversation with Dr. Tim Gorski, who is a preacher of free thought, and he's an atheist, but he believes in the concept of church and community for people,
Hmm.
particularly in the historical context of how civilizations have developed.
Hmm.
And he just thought that my definition of faith was unsound. And I thought, okay, you're entitled to your opinion. You're a brilliant man. He's a gynecologist. He's been for like 30 years. He's been doing his work. I do not want to denigrate all the wonderful work he's done with the North Texas Church of Free Thought. But I am entitled to my opinion. And for me, the number one definition of faith is, I'm managing this baseball team. My best hitter's going to hit number 3. I have faith in that guy. That's what I mean when I use the word faith.
Right.
So sorry, I hope that doesn't offend you with
No,
what's in your DNA and your experience.
no, no, no.
But I'm a humanitarian, really. If you really want to boil it down, instead of even saying agnostic, the number one thing
Hmm.
I would say is I like in like Tennessee Williams wrote, I believe in the kindness of strangers. Because if we don't believe in the kindness of strangers and civilization, the lights will go
Hmm.
out pretty quickly from the
Yeah.
paranoia.
Well, that's my like I believe that like I had a very profound spiritual kind of an epiphany moment one afternoon in, well, it was March 9th, 2009, where I suddenly saw the oneness of everything and that we're all deeply connected and that everyone's connected and that every one of our worldviews is there's as many worldviews as there are people.
Yeah, well,
And,
and there's a
and
universe between our ears.
yes, and
Yeah.
it's our way of coping with the world and understanding the world. This is the way I am is the way I feel most capable of understanding the world I'm in. And so everyone's perspective, I have respect for each and everyone's perspective. I might not agree with it. I probably don't, but that's their way of coping and living in this world. And that's not only just individuals, that's also religions, philosophies, all that. But it doesn't deny the fact that there's just one reality in which we all live and move and have our being and are connected.
Okay. Regarding epiphanies in that same theme, you
Hmm.
have said in your YouTube short and maybe in some other YouTube videos that at your core you really are Sophia. And I think this is also what my daughter asked. Hang on, I'm going to look on WhatsApp. She sent
Okay.
me a message.
Okay.
I'm just going to read it, okay? And then
Sure.
we'll go
Yeah.
back to what I said. So this is for you, Lexi. I'm asking the question now. Oh gosh, if I still have time, one question I'm curious about, if there are any times wherein naked pastor feels, and feels is in quotes, more like Sophia. For example, back before I transitioned, sometimes while stoned, and I now get stoned too. It helps me overcome my writer's block. So I smoke a little weed before I have a 1 hour writing session. I'd like to feel more like a girl within and without. Punk singer Laura Jane Grace disclosed this exact same feeling in her memoir, Tranny, Confessions of Punk Rock's Most Infamous Anarchist Sellout. Also, this is talking about your artwork. Also, I'd love to be twinsies for Sophie Entangled artwork. I'm waiting for Sophie Entangled in the mail. So this is what I have in the background instead, my LP of Howard Jones
Oh,
humans.
wow.
Uh,
Okay.
but whenever Sophia comes in, she's going to be right there on
Cool.
my
Cool.
music rest of my piano.
Nice.
So yeah, so she was asking, are there any times that you feel more like Sophia than others, I guess?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I started drawing Sophia after I left the ministry, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know her name or whatever, and I just sat down and started drawing. And
It sounded like you trusted your unconscious mind. Would that be
yeah,
fair?
totally.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I
Okay.
didn't realize it at first. I was just drawing. But
Okay.
after like eight or so, I realized that I was drawing my own story of liberation from the church, the ministry, religion, and so every weekend my wife would work nights. I would, pull out a bottle of wine, put on the music, and start drawing. And 59 drawings later, I had this whole journey of this woman, and the name came to me, Sophia, and it sort of has a double meaning. Sophia is a Greek word for wisdom, but also it's considered the divine feminine and so on. Also, though, I realized I was drawing myself. Like this was my story. And a lot of people are like, well, why is she a woman? And it's very Jungian. So I'd studied Jung, Carl Jung, and the anima, animus, all that, the female aspect of the male and the male aspect of the female, and realized that my anima, my female aspect, was crying to be free. And this is how it happened. It was sort of a very cathartic, artistic exercise that took me a couple of years of me getting more and more in touch with not only get in touch with my feminine side, but to release her. So I believe like, Jungian still, I think, was caught in the sort of a binary perspective, male, female, whereas I see us all on a spectrum and that it's all male, female, and we might gravitate more male, we might gravitate more female, but all along the way there's a mixture of your typical male, female attributes and so on and so forth. So I just found that I was way more comfortable with my sort of traditionally feminine aspects. And yeah, it was a huge liberating experience for me. So yeah, there are times when I feel um, more in touch with my feminine side, more in touch with my masculine side, and I think it comes across to some people as offensive, but to me it's very liberating, and I feel it's also very uh, sort of individuated, like integrated, more of an integrated life of being in touch with that. Like, and I wrote a book actually where I collected all of the Sophia drawings and meditations for each one. It's called The Liberation of Sophia. You can get it on Amazon, but a lot of women, mostly women, read the book. And I hear from a lot of women saying, I can't believe you as a man wrote this. It sounds like a woman wrote it. So that to me is very affirming and
They
encouraging.
don't send you like their underwear and stuff in the mail, do
No, no, no,
they?
not yet.
They might. They did when Charles Bukowski wrote Women. They'd send his underwear, but that was the 70s. We missed out on the really fun times. I think we peaked as artists in the wrong decade, I think. But no, that sounds great. I just jotted it down, The Liberation of Sophia. I definitely want to check that out.
Yeah.
I would think for me, I think of the whole thing of the battle of the sexes as being really kind of silly. And Michael Crichton was one of my favorite novelists, Jurassic Park and uh,
Right.
Sphere and Andromeda Strain and all that. He also wrote one that was a memoir and that was called Travels.
Hmm.
And I remember one, and I read it exactly the right age. This might have been just before or right after when I was in my early 20s, married to my first wife. My first marriage was 20 years, and I've been married now, my second marriage, 17 years. So I've been very lucky in love. I've been very fortunate. But I remember reading that, and Mike, it stuck with me because I've always been kind of fascinated. My bachelor degree was in psychology, and until they kicked me out, I had half a master's degree in clinical psych, and it wasn't anything bad that I got kicked out, but I questioned someone in a personality testing class, the professor, about a man comes in, he says that he has sexually molested his stepdaughter. She's 12 or 13 years old. What do you do? And immediately, very competitive, very intelligent people in graduate school, they start spouting out all these different kind of treatments. And I raised my hand and I asked, isn't he obligated to call the police? The child has been sexually assaulted. Silence. Everybody ignores me. They go back to suggesting the different kind of therapies. I got out, I walked out, then I got consulted to see my advisor, and they said, that I was done at graduate school, which is fine. I got my master's in something else, like an MFA, in writing. But
Wow.
and I became a police officer after that because I don't like bullies, and I wound up taking a lot of guys who beat their wives to jail. And I was so fortunate being the skinny, half Puerto Rican, pasty boy working all black neighborhoods. But that's where I grew up, and I was fortunate, and I knew how to talk to people.
Wow.
When I take them to jail, the handcuffs that come off. A lot of times they want to shake my hand, look me in the eye, and ask me, "Are you sure you're a cop?" You go, "You sure don't act like one." They knew more about me, honestly, than I did myself then, because now life for me has gotten better. The longer I live it. I love living in Europe. I worry about my friends back in America, but
Hmm.
I've been so fortunate. And I feel like I've been very fortunate to talk to you today. I'm kind of speeding things up because I think we nailed everything. Now,
Okay.
the joke question I had, and I don't want to get you angry,
No.
to me, it's not a joke. I ask people sometimes if they think Donald Trump is a psychopath. A lot of times people don't want to answer that. That's understandable. So, do you want to yes, no, maybe, or pass?
Uh, well, first of all, I'm Canadian. I
I
don't
know.
know okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And
but
I'm living in the Netherlands. So I left, when
well,
my wife and I left the USA, we left Los Angeles in 2018. I loved
oh,
Los
okay.
Angeles, but Los Angeles did not love
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
You know,
So I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, but I do suspect that he's a malignant narcissist at least.
at least.
And
Okay.
yeah, and that just leads to all kinds of problems. So that's my guess, but it's not, I'm not making a statement of fact. It's just my guess. I've got a few people in my life that I suspect they're narcissists, and because they show all the symptoms.
Yeah.
And so, I'm not willing to publish a statement saying that they are that, but that they do show the symptoms of that for sure. And I'm
And the
looking
final
forward to the
question.
day when he's gone.
Yeah, no, I came to just accept it as a fact, like it's a mathematical, like 2 + 2 is 4. Of course,
Yeah.
he's a psychopath. Back my father's generation and before that, my father fought in the U.S. Navy for the United States in World War II in Korea. that everyone recognized that Hitler was a psychopath and they called him that. And I think it helped them kind of understand. It's kind of like you see a dog that's rabid and you don't know what a rabid dog is, and now you have the words and you understand to stay away from it, what it is. So that's
Hmm.
why I titled my podcast, because they do exist. About a quarter of the population in the United States of prisoners are straight up psychopaths. They're diagnosed that way, that you tick all the boxes. And I believe, in my opinion, 18 years as a police officer, half a master's in clinical psych and a master's degree in humanities, that he is clinically one, a
Hmm.
psychopath. Last question, sir, and this is
Yeah.
to end on a happy note. What gives you hope in the year 2026 for right now, for the rest of the year?
Well, one of my favorite authors, she's a feminist author, woman, Rebecca Solnit. She originally wrote,
Me too.
got famous, with the
Yeah.
book Men Explain Things to Me. But she wrote a book not long, well, some years ago now, but it's called Hope in the Dark and or Hope in Darkness or something like that. And I read that book and it really did confirm to me that people who are activists and are working in the world to make it a better place, for me, a perfect analogy is somebody like a farmer who plants seeds. And it's slow, laborious, boring work where you're just planting seeds and you're weeding and you're removing rocks and you're spraying the plants, you're watering the plants. It's just and that to me is what social justice is. It's just doing the small little acts of kindness. And that's how love wins, I believe. It's not by some huge momentous explosion. It's just by all these little small acts of kindness. And so that really encourages me to press on and just to be kind in this world and to encourage others to be kind. It doesn't require a hero. It just requires each and every one of us just to do our part. So that's my hope is in humanity, that there are enough kind people planting enough seeds of love that eventually we'll see the harvest and that we will see that love does win. So that's where my hope is right now.
Yeah, me too. I'm
Yeah.
very optimistic about the future. And I hope, I know people thank you all the time for your work. I want to add my name to that
Thank you so
list.
much. Yeah.
I'm profoundly grateful for the work you do, and I wish you the very best of luck with all the work you have out there now and the work that you're going to do in the future.
Thank you so much, Paul, and say hi to your daughter, Lexi.
I will. She'll be thrilled. Take
Great.
care.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.